Captain Marcus Reed stood in the command chamber of the orbital fortress, his fingers drumming against the cold metal railing as he studied the holographic display before him. The alien world below rotated slowly, its purple atmosphere swirling with storms that had raged for centuries. Somewhere beneath those clouds lived the target, Queen Velestra of the Naravi species, the being his superiors had marked for execution. The orders had been explicit. Infiltrate the royal complex, eliminate the Queen, and extract before enemy forces could respond. Earth's military command had classified this as a critical mission, one that would supposedly prevent an interstellar war. Marcus had led strike teams into hostile territory dozens of times, but something about this assignment felt different. The briefings had been rushed, the intelligence sparse, and the justification vague. "Captain, the infiltration shuttle is ready," Lieutenant Jackson reported, his young face eager and unquestioning. The man was fresh from the academy, still believing every word that came from command without hesitation. Marcus nodded, though his mind churned with doubts he couldn't voice. He descended from the observation deck and made his way to the hangar bay, where his team of 6 operators waited beside the stealth vessel. They wore adaptive camouflage suits, carried plasma rifles, and had been trained to complete missions without mercy or hesitation. These were humanity's finest warriors, and they would follow him into hell if he commanded it. The descent through the atmosphere was turbulent but uneventful. The shuttle's cloaking systems kept them invisible to Naravi sensors as they approached the capital city. Through the viewport, Marcus glimpsed towering structures that seemed to grow organically from the landscape, their architecture flowing rather than constructed. Gardens floated between buildings, suspended by technology humanity hadn't yet deciphered. They landed in a secluded courtyard 3 kilometers from the royal complex. The team moved through the alien city under cover of darkness, their suits adapting to match the bioluminescent flora that lined the streets. Marcus had expected resistance, but the Naravi people seemed peaceful, moving about their evening activities without weapons or guards. Children played in parks while adults gathered in outdoor spaces, their melodious language carrying on the warm breeze. "These are the enemy?" Jackson whispered, sounding uncertain for the first time. Marcus silenced him with a gesture. Doubt was contagious, and they had a mission to complete. The royal complex loomed ahead, a magnificent structure that spiraled toward the sky like a nautilus shell. Security was surprisingly light. The team bypassed what few checkpoints existed with ease, making Marcus wonder if the Naravi had ever truly prepared for war. His tactical mind recognized this as either supreme confidence or complete naivety. They entered through a service passage and navigated the winding corridors, using stolen schematics. The interior was nothing like the sterile military facilities Marcus knew. Every surface was adorned with what appeared to be living art, murals that shifted and changed, depicting scenes he couldn't quite interpret. The air smelled of something floral and clean. "Target chamber ahead," Marcus's scanner indicated. He signaled for the team to take positions, but when they breached the Queen's sanctuary, weapons raised, Marcus found himself frozen by what he saw. Queen Velestra wasn't the monstrous tyrant he'd been led to expect. She stood barely 5 feet tall, her crystalline skin reflecting the soft light of the chamber. Her large, dark eyes held no fear, only a profound sadness that seemed to reach across the space between species. "You have come to kill me," she said in perfect English, her voice gentle. "I knew humans would eventually choose this path." "Don't speak," Marcus commanded, though his rifle wavered. "You're classified as a threat to Earth's security." The Queen made no move to defend herself or call for guards. Instead, she gestured to a pedestal at the center of the room. Upon it sat an object that made Marcus's breath catch. It was a cube of shifting metal and light, covered in symbols that seemed both alien and hauntingly familiar. "Before you complete your mission, I ask only that you touch the archive," Galestra said. "It is your right to know the truth before you commit this act." "It could be a weapon," Jackson warned, but Marcus found himself drawn forward. Something about the artifact called to him, whispered promises of understanding that he desperately needed. Against every protocol, he reached out and placed his palm against its surface. The universe exploded into his mind. Images flooded his consciousness with devastating clarity. He saw Earth as it had been 50,000 years ago. Not the cradle of humanity he'd been taught about, but a prison colony. The Na'vi had been the wardens, gentle and patient, tasked with rehabilitating a species too violent to remain among the galactic community. Humanity's ancestors had been criminals, soldiers, and conquerors who had nearly destroyed entire civilizations. Before being exiled to a remote world to learn compassion, the Na'vi had hoped that isolation and time would temper humanity's aggressive nature. They had watched from afar as humans clawed their way up from primitive survival, always hoping that this time would be different. When humanity finally developed space travel, the Na'vi had retreated to the edges of known space, praying that their ancient charges had evolved beyond their violent heritage. But the images showed the truth that Earth's government had discovered and buried. When human explorers first encountered Na'vi ships, they had found derelict vessels containing historical databases. Military intelligence had learned that humanity was the descendant of the galaxy's most feared warrior race, the Krell, who had been defeated and scattered millennia ago. Rather than share this shameful truth, Earth's leaders had chosen to weaponize it. The propaganda had been carefully constructed. The Na'vi became the aggressors, the threat that needed to be eliminated before they could strike first. The military campaigns were framed as preemptive defense, and soldiers like Marcus were sent to eliminate the very beings who had shown mercy to humanity's brutal ancestors. Marcus staggered back from the archive, his mind reeling. He looked at his team, saw their confusion and growing horror as the truth spread from his thoughts through the psychic resonance field the artifact generated. They all knew now. They all understood what they had been sent to do. "We are the monsters," Marcus whispered, the rifle falling from his hands. Queen Valestra remained motionless, her expression unchanged. "Your species has a choice, Captain. You can continue down the path of violence that led your ancestors to exile, or you can choose differently. We have waited so long, hoping you would prove that compassion can triumph over conquest." Jackson dropped to his knees, his weapon clattering against the floor. The other team members stood paralyzed, their entire worldview shattered in moments. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as the weight of countless lies crushed down upon him. "The galaxy remembers the Krell," Valestra continued. "Billions died in the wars your ancestors waged. We Na'vi were among the few who argued for mercy instead of extinction. We believed that any species could change, given enough time and isolation from the weapons that made them dangerous. We were wrong to hide your history from you, but we hoped that ignorance might allow you to develop naturally, without the burden of such darkness." Marcus looked at the Queen with new eyes. She wasn't a threat. She was a guardian who had failed, a jailer who had loved her prisoners too much to let them know their chains. "What happens now?" he managed to ask. "That depends on you," Valestra said. "You can complete your mission and prove that humanity has learned nothing. The Galactic Council will respond by quarantining your entire species, perhaps permanently. Or you can return to Earth and share this truth, letting your people decide what kind of species they wish to become." Marcus thought of the military command that had sent him here, the politicians who had buried the truth, the society built on lies about human exceptionalism and manifest destiny. Revealing this would shatter everything. Wars had been started over less. The chaos would be immense, but he thought also of the Na'vi children he'd seen playing in the parks, of the peaceful society that had never fortified against the monsters from Earth because they still held hope for redemption. He thought of his own daughter back home, and the future she deserved beyond the cycle of violence. "Stand down," Marcus ordered his team. "We're leaving." He turned to Valestra, this small being who held the fate of humanity in her fragile hands. "I can't promise what Earth will do with this information, but I can promise that some of us want to be better than what we were." The Queen's expression softened into something that might have been a smile. "That is all we have ever hoped for, Captain. The archive is yours to take. Share it as you will. The truth belongs to your people now." Marcus and his team departed the royal complex carrying the artifact, their mission transformed from assassination to revelation. As their shuttle climbed back toward orbit, Marcus looked down at the purple world below and wondered what kind of hell awaited him back home. But he also felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. Humanity had been given a second chance, an opportunity to choose enlightenment over conquest. Whether his species would take it remained uncertain. The only certainty was that the monsters they'd been commanded to kill had shown them more mercy